Four strangers walked into a queer meetup. They thought it would be awkward small talk and cheap wine, but ended up telling each other the most unhinged stories of their lives.
So I visited a lesbian BDSM club, and let's just say there was wax involved, an oil, and 3 people.
And that was just the beginning.
We were supposed to complete an escape room. Instead, I ended up in a threesome with my date and the guy playing the serial killer.
She covered me in paint. Then she covered me in... Well, let's just say the art gallery sold that piece for $3,000.
And just when they thought nothing could top that.
My boyfriend and I are very boring. We meal prep. We go to bed at 10. Except for the times we meet up with that couple from out of town.
4 confessions, 1 unforgettable night, and friendships that started with 4 strangers oversharing. The confession game, a queer story from the Portal Library.
Welcome to the Portal Library. Step through and let the magic begin. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you'd love more stories or have a request. New videos uploaded every Friday.
The confession game. Prologue. Present time. The patio at Lina's apartment was too small for 4 people, 2 pizzas, and the amount of wine they'd already gone through, but no one seemed to care. Mary leaned back in her chair, barefoot, cardigan slipping off one shoulder. I'm just saying, if you'd told me 4 years ago that I'd be spending my Friday nights like this, I wouldn't have believed you. Eating cold pizza on a fire escape? Stefan deadpanned, reaching for another slice. With you people? Mary corrected, smiling. Jamal gasped, hand to chest. Rude. We're delightful. You're something, Lina said, scrolling through her phone. She held it up. Look what came up in my photos memories today. The photo was dim, grainy, taken from someone's phone from across a crowded bar. 4 strangers squeezed around a tiny table, cards spread between them, mid-laugh at something none of them could probably remember now. Oh my God, that night, Jamal groaned, covering his face. Why did we tell each other all of that? Because you can't help yourself, Stefan said, rolling his eyes. Okay, but you told the craziest story, and you were supposed to be the normal one. Stefan shrugged, chewing. I am a man of multiple talents. Mary pulled her knees up to her chest, still looking at the photo. That meetup was so awkward. I almost didn't go. Same, Lina admitted. I sat in my car for like 10 minutes before I decided to enter the place. I showed up late on purpose, Stefan added. They all turned to Jamal since he was all too quiet. What? He exclaimed. I was excited. New city, new people, free appetizers. There were no free appetizers, Lina said. There could have been, Jamal replied. Mary laughed with her shoulders shaking. Honestly, though, if we hadn't played that stupid game, I don't think we would have ever talked to each other again. We would have just been 4 random people who smiled to each other politely and never exchanged numbers. True, Lina said softly. Jamal topped off his wine. I can't believe the meetup host just whipped out a deck of cards and was like, tell strangers your business. It worked, though, Stefan said. It really worked, Mary agreed. Lina set her phone down, grinning. Okay, real question. If you could go back, knowing what you know now, would you still have answered your card? There was a beat of silence. Yeah, Mary said first. Definitely. Oh, 100%, Jamal said. That night was unhinged, and I loved it. Stefan raised his glass. Wouldn't change a thing. Lina clinked her glass against his. Me neither. Mary pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders, eyes distant for just a second. You know what's wild? That whole night started because I was trying to make one friend. Just one. And instead you got stuck with us, Jamal said, grinning. Lucky me, Mary replied. Lina leaned forward, elbows on her knees. Okay, but seriously, do you guys even remember how it started? Like how we ended up at that table together? Vaguely, Stefan said. I remember being terrified, Mary admitted. Jamal waved a hand. It was chaos. The host was running around. Everyone was already in groups, and then we got stuck together, Lina finished. Best accident ever, Mary said quietly. Stefan looked at her, then at the others. You want to hear something weird? I almost bailed that night. Twice. Why didn't you? Lina asked. He shrugged. I don't know. I guess I just took a gamble. Well, Jamal said, raising his glass again. Here's to staying. They clinked glasses, the sound small and warm in the night air. And then Lina smiled, mischievous. All right, storytelling hour. Who wants to go first? How did that night actually start? Mary groaned. From the beginning? From the beginning. Fine, Mary said, settling in. Settling in and get ready. We're ready, Stefan said. Okay. Mary took a breath, smiling despite herself. So, it started like this.
Chapter 1. Mary. I found the meetup on Instagram, which made sense because at that point I was following every queer account in a 50-mile radius. 3 months in the city, and I'd already been to a lesbian book club, 2 different pride planning meetings, a queer yoga class, a sapphic speed dating event that was mostly just people standing around nervously, and something called Dyke Night Bingo, which was exactly what it sounds like. I was saying yes to everything. Every event, every invitation, every, hey, we're grabbing drinks if you want to come. I'd spent 12 years being careful, being appropriate, being someone's wife, and I was done with that. So, when this meetup popped up, queer social for people new to the city, I didn't even hesitate. I just clicked going and showed up. The bar was loud and crowded, and I loved it. There was a table in the back with a handmade sign that said, Queer Meetup New Members Welcome, and a woman with a clipboard waving people over. I walked straight up. Hi, first time. Perfect, I'm Rachel. Grab a name tag, get a drink, and we'll get started in a few. I scribbled Mary on the tag and stuck it to my flannel, which, yes, I knew was a cliche, but I was leaning into it. I grabbed a beer and looked around. Most people were already clustered in groups, talking and laughing. But there were a few of us hovering awkwardly at the edges, clearly the new ones. A guy in his early 30s stood near the corner scrolling his phone like he was trying to look busy. Another guy, younger and way more energetic, was already chatting with Rachel like they were best friends. And a woman about my age sat alone at a table, looking simultaneously bored and nervous. Rachel clapped her hands. All right, everyone, new folks, come grab a seat at this table. We're going to do a little icebreaker. The 4 of us made eye contact, the universal look of, oh no. We sat down without much fanfare, awkward smiles all around. The younger guy broke the silence first. Well, this is happening. The woman at the table snorted. Yep, I'm Jamal, he said, gesturing around the circle. And you all are? Lina, Stefan, Mary. Jamal grinned. Cool. So who else is brand new to this, or is it just me? First time, Lina said. Same, I added. My boyfriend made me come, Stefan said flatly. Jamal laughed. Way to make us envy you. I laughed before I could stop myself, and some of the tension eased. Rachel came over with a deck of cards and set it in the middle of the table. Okay, here's the deal. Super simple. You draw a card, answer the prompt, tell a real story. It's way better than small talk, trust me. She fanned the deck out. Who wants to go first? We all looked at each other, and I don't know what possessed me, but I said, I'll do it. Maybe it was the beer. Maybe it was 3 months of saying yes to everything. Maybe I just wanted to see what would happen. I pulled a card. Tell us about a time you tried something completely outside your comfort zone. I looked at it and immediately started laughing. Oh my God, I said. Okay, yes, I have a story. Jamal leaned forward. This is going to be good. I set the card down and took a breath. So, quick context, I'm recently divorced from my ex-husband after 12 years of being together. I realized that I was a lesbian and took the leap to move here and start over. Stefan nodded knowingly. Lina's eyebrows went up. Jamal looked delighted. And when I say I'm new to this, I continued, I mean new. Like, I have been going to every single queer event I can find because I have 12 years of gay stuff to catch up on. Book clubs, speed dating, brunches, you name it, I'm there. Living your best life, Jamal said. Trying to, I said. Anyway, 2 weeks ago I saw a flyer for this members-only event at a place I'd never heard of. Very vague description. Just said sapphic social, open bar, 21 plus. I paused for effect. Turns out it was at a lesbian BDSM club. Lina choked on her drink. Jamal's mouth fell open. Even Stefan cracked a smile. I'm sorry, what? Jamal said. A dominatrix space, I clarified. Full dungeon setup, leather everywhere. I walked in and there was a woman in a harness having a very intense conversation about consent and safe words. And you stayed? Lina asked, eyes wide. I did, I said, laughing. Because I'd already paid the cover and I was like, you know what? I came here to try new things. Let's see what happens. Stefan shook his head, grinning. Respect? So I got a drink, which, yes, they had a full bar, very nice, and I just observed. Everyone was so chill about it. Like, some people were in full gear and some people were just in jeans. It wasn't this big, scary thing. It was a very welcoming space, actually. I took a sip of my beer. And then this woman came up to me, older, probably mid-40s, full leather getup, very confident, and she goes, "First time?" "Oh, no," Lina said. And I'm like, "Is it that obvious?" And she laughed and said, "Honey, you're holding your drink like it's a security blanket. You're fine. You want a tour?" Jamal gasped. "She gave you a tour?" "She gave me a tour," I confirmed. Showed me the different rooms, explained what everything was for, told me about the community guidelines. It was like, weirdly educational and sweet. That's amazing, Stefan said. It really was, I said. And at the end, she was like, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But if you ever want to come back, you're welcome here. I smiled, remembering. Perfect. Here's the revised, spicier version. So I'm standing there with my drink, trying to look normal, when the woman who gave me the tour comes back over and says, "We're about to do a demo. Rope work. You want to watch?" I paused, looking at their faces. And I said yes, because apparently I'd left all my self-preservation instincts in my old life. Jamal covered his mouth. Lina leaned all the way forward. So they set up this whole thing in the main room. Everyone gathered around, and this incredible woman, tall, covered in tattoos, completely in her element, starts demonstrating shibari, which, if you don't know, is Japanese rope bondage. It's like art. The way she moved, the way the ropes created these patterns. It was beautiful. I took a breath. And then she looks right at me and says, "I need a volunteer." "No," Lina whispered. "Oh my God, you didn't," Stefan said. "I did," I said. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was 3 months of saying yes to everything. But I raised my hand. Jamal made a noise that was half laugh, half scream. So I'm standing there in front of like 10 people, and she's talking me through it the whole time. Is this okay? Does this feel secure? You can say your safe word whenever you want. Super professional, super safe. And she starts wrapping the rope. I smiled, remembering the feeling. It was weird at first, but then it gradually became sensual. It was like I was getting to know every inch of my body. And when she was done, I looked down and there were these intricate knots and patterns all across my arms and chest, and everyone started clapping. "You're kidding," Lina said. I chuckled. And the woman leans in and whispers, "You're a natural. Welcome to the community." I looked her right in the eye and whispered back, "Got anything more intense? I'm looking for a wild ride tonight." Stefan's eyes went wide. Jamal actually gasped. "Oh, before you ask everyone, there wore these little bracelets with their safe words on them." It was honestly very organized and consensual. I paused, taking a sip of my beer. Anyway, without going into too much graphic detail, let's just say there was wax involved, and oil, and some very intense sensations. It started with one person, then 2, then 3, maybe 4. Anyways, I felt my face flush just thinking about it. I discovered some very sensitive parts of my body that I never knew existed. I let out a deep breath, almost dreamy, until I remembered where I was and looked around the table. All three of them were staring at me with their mouths open. That was 2 weeks ago, I said casually after clearing my throat. And I'm definitely going back. There was a beat of silence. Then Jamal said, "That is the best first story I've ever heard." Lina nodded slowly, still processing. "Seriously, you win." "I didn't know we were competing," I said, laughing. "We are now," Jamal said, reaching for the deck. "All right, let's see if I can top that." And just like that, the night kept going.
Chapter 2. Jamal. I grabbed the deck and fanned through it dramatically. Okay, so Mary just set the theme as kinky, apparently, which means no matter what this card says, I'm interpreting it that way. Lina snorted into her drink. Stefan shook his head, smiling. I pulled a card and flipped it over. "Tell us about your most memorable first date." "Oh, perfect," I said, slapping the card down on the table. Okay, so, quick intro for those keeping track. I'm pansexual, I've been in this city for about 8 months, and I treat dating like it's a competitive sport. If there's an app, I'm on it. If there's a meetup opportunity, I'm taking it. I have zero chill, and I'm fine with that. Mary was already grinning. "This is going to be good." "It's going to be exceptional," I corrected. So, most memorable first date. This happened like 3 months ago. I matched with this guy on Hinge, we'll call him David. Super cute, great smile, seemed totally normal in his messages. We'd been chatting for a couple days, lots of flirty banter, and the chemistry was definitely there, even through text. I leaned back in my chair, getting comfortable. So, David messages me one day and goes, "I have an idea for our first date, but it's a little unconventional." And I'm like, "Unconventional is my middle name. Tell me." And he says, I paused for effect, "How do you feel about escape rooms?" Stefan tilted his head. "That's actually kind of cute." "Right? That's what I thought," I said. I'd never done one before, but it sounded fun. Different. So I said yes, and we made plans for that Friday night. I took a sip of my drink. Now, I should mention I spent way too much time getting ready. Like, what do you even wear to an escape room? I wanted to look good, but also, I wasn't trying too hard. I changed outfits so many times. My roommate was laughing at me the entire time. Lina smiled. Relatable. "So I show up at this place," I continued, "and it's in this slightly sketchy part of town. Like, warehouse district, not a lot of foot traffic. The sign just says, Enigma Rooms in red neon. Very atmospheric. And David's already there, leaning against the wall, looking even better in person than his photos." I grinned. We do the awkward first date hug, and he's like, "I'm so glad you came. I booked us their hardest room. It's horror-themed. I hope that's okay?" And I'm thinking, horror-themed is a weird choice for a first date, but I'm also extremely competitive, so I thought we could give it a shot. "What was the room?" Mary asked. "Serial killer's basement," I said. "We're supposed to be his victims, and we have an hour to escape before he comes back. Very Saw-like and dramatic." I set my drink down and leaned forward. So we go inside, and immediately it's dark. We could barely see our hands in front of our face until a flickering light bulb hanging from the ceiling came on, creepy music playing from somewhere, and the walls were covered in fake blood and scratches. It was super immersive. "That actually sounds terrifying," Lina said. "It was low-key, not gonna lie," I said, "but also kind of exciting. Like, my adrenaline was already going, and David and I are standing there, and he turns to me with this grin and goes, 'Ready to not die together?'" I smiled at the memory. So we start working on the puzzles, looking for clues, finding hidden keys, trying to piece together the escape route, and honestly, we made a pretty good team. He was good at noticing details, and I was good at thinking outside the box. We were laughing, getting excited when we solved something. The chemistry was definitely there. I paused. And then we found this clue that led us to a hidden compartment in the wall. We both reached for it at the same time, and our hands touched. Stefan raised an eyebrow. Classic. I know, right? So, rom-com, I said. But the thing is, the touch lingered. Like, we both just stopped, and we're standing there in this creepy fake basement, and suddenly the atmosphere shifts. We got close, really close, and I can feel the heat coming off him. I took a breath. David looks at me and goes, "We should probably keep solving puzzles." And I say, probably, but neither of us moves. Mary was fully invested now, leaning forward. "And then he kisses me," I said. Just goes for it. And it's not some soft, tentative first kiss thing. It's intense and rough. I ran a hand through my hair. We stumbled back against the wall with all the fake blood on it, and we're just going at it. Hands in hair, hands under shirts, the whole thing. The puzzles are completely forgotten at this point. We have about 40 minutes left on the clock, and we do not care. Lina's eyes were wide. Stefan was trying not to smile. I don't know how long we were like that, I continued. 5 minutes? 10? Hell, it could have been much longer, but I wouldn't know. But then we heard this sounded like footsteps, heavy and slow, and a door creaking open. The serial killer, Mary said. The serial killer, I confirmed. We jump apart like teenagers who got caught, trying to fix our shirts, catching our breath. And this guy walks in full costume, bloody apron, creepy mask, the works. And he just stands there, staring at us. I grinned. David and I are frozen, super embarrassed, waiting for him to tell us to get out or something. But then, the guy reaches up and takes off his mask. I paused for effect. And he is gorgeous. I'm talking unfairly, stupidly hot. Covered in tattoos, multiple piercings, this intense look in his eyes. Mid-30s maybe. And he looks at both of us and says, in this low voice, "You two know you're supposed to be escaping, right?" "Oh my God," Lina said, starting to see where this was going. So I, being myself, say, "We got a little distracted. And this guy, we'll call him Marcus." He looks at the cameras in the corner and goes, "Yeah, I noticed." I leaned back, enjoying their reactions. And then there's this moment of silence. All three of us were just looking at each other. And Marcus says, "Listen, I don't usually do this, but if you two want to continue what you were doing, there's a more private space upstairs. This building isn't just an escape room." Stefan's eyebrows went up. "What? That's what I said," I exclaimed. I'm like, "What do you mean it's not just an escape room?" And Marcus explains that the top floor is, let's call it an adult entertainment venue. Themed rooms, total discretion. Very exclusive. Apparently, they use the escape room as a front. Mary's jaw dropped. "You're kidding." "I wish," I said. And Marcus looks at both of us and goes, "If you're interested, I can take you up. No pressure. But the offer's there." I spread my hands. And I look at David. David looks at me. We both seem to be thinking the same thing. "But you didn't," Lina said. "Oh, sweetheart," I replied. We followed Marcus upstairs. I took another sip of my drink, drawing it out. The upstairs was like a completely different world. Dim red lighting, black walls, this whole seductive atmosphere. Marcus led us to a room at the end of the hall and unlocked it. And when we walked in, I shook my head. It was intense. Massive bed in the center with black silk sheets, red ambient lighting that made everything look like it was glowing, and equipment restraints built into the bed frame, various accessories on the walls. It looked like someone's most elaborate fantasy brought to life. All three of them were completely silent now, hanging on every word. Marcus closed the door behind us and laid out the ground rules, I said. Everyone consents enthusiastically. Safe words are mandatory and respected. What happens in this room stays in this room. Very professional about it, which somehow made it even hotter. I smiled. So we started slow, just talking at first, figuring out what everyone was comfortable with. Marcus asked questions about what we liked, what we'd tried before, what we wanted to try. David was more nervous than me, but Marcus had this way of making you feel safe, even in this completely wild situation. I paused, remembering. Marcus took the lead. He started with me first, told me to sit on the edge of the bed, came up behind me, hands on my shoulders, and just took his time. Slow, deliberate touches. Knew exactly what he was doing. David was watching, and I could see him getting more and more turned on just from seeing me react. Stefan had gone very still. Mary's face was flushed. Lina looked like she'd forgotten how to blink. Then Marcus brought David in, I continued, my voice lower now. Had him kneel in front of me. The power dynamic was insane. Marcus directing everything, both of us following his lead. He'd give these quiet commands, and we'd just obey. It was intoxicating. I ran my hand through my hair again. Things escalated from there. Shirts came off. Then everything else. Marcus introduced the restraints, had David's wrists bound to the bed frame, had me positioned between them. The three of us found this rhythm, this connection I've honestly never experienced before. I let out a breath. The sounds in that room, David moaning, Marcus's voice giving directions, the bed creaking, all of us breathing heavy. It was primal, raw, and absolutely unhinged in the best possible way. At some point, the positions changed. I was restrained, David was free, Marcus was orchestrating the whole thing like a conductor. Then it switched again. It was fluid, intense, overwhelming in the best way. Someone's back got scratched, hair got pulled, there was biting, marking, claiming. I smiled almost dreamily. I lost track of time completely. Definitely more than an hour. Could have been 3. At some point, we all just collapsed on that bed, sweaty, exhausted, completely wrecked, and just lying there, tangled together, trying to remember how to form coherent thoughts. I looked around the table. Marcus eventually got up, handed us water, told us to take our time. He was back in professional mode, which was somehow even more surreal. David and I just looked at each other and smiled, not believing what just happened. "Did you see him again?" Mary asked, her voice slightly hoarse. "David and I went on a couple more dates," I said. "But we realized pretty quickly we worked better as friends than as a couple. We were too similar, weirdly enough, and stubborn. But we still grab drinks sometimes and laugh about that night." I grinned. "As for Marcus? Well, let's just say I have his number saved in my phone under emergency contact, and I've used it. Twice." There was complete silence at the table for at least 10 seconds. Then Mary said, her voice strangled, "That is fucking amazing." She looked at Lina and Stefan. "How the hell are you going to top that?" Ha, pun intended. Lina was bright red, fanning herself with her hand. "I don't think I can." "Jesus Christ, Jamal." Stefan just shook his head slowly. That's a lot." "Too much?" I asked innocently. "No," Lina said quickly. "Just, wow." She reached for the deck with slightly trembling hands. "Okay, my turn. Let's see if I can even come close to that." And just like that, the night kept going.
Chapter 3. Lina. I stared at the deck for a second before pulling a card, still trying to process what Jamal had just told us. "Okay," I said, flipping it over. "Let's see what we're working with here. Tell us about a time you took a risk." I laughed sharp and a little bitter. "Oh, perfect. Yeah, I've got one." I set the card down and looked around the table. So, quick background. I'm bisexual. I moved here about 4 months ago for work, and I have been on more dating apps than I care to admit. Hinge, Bumble, Tinder, Field, Her, Lex, you name it. I've swiped on it. And let me tell you, the dating pool in this city is diverse. And by diverse, I mean chaotic. Mary nodded knowingly. Stefan looked sympathetic. "I've collected so many horror stories at this point that my friends back home think I'm making them up," I continued. "The guy who brought his mom on our date. The woman who spent 2 hours explaining her cryptocurrency pyramid scheme. The person who casually mentioned they were married halfway through dinner." "Jesus," Jamal said. "Right?" I said. "So by the time this story happens, which was maybe 3 weeks ago, I'm pretty jaded. I'm swiping out of boredom more than genuine interest. Just going through the motions." I took a sip of my drink. And then I matched with this woman on Field. Her name was Sienna. Mid-30s, gorgeous, and her profile was intriguing. Lots of artistic photos, very mysterious vibes. Her bio just said, "Looking for someone adventurous who doesn't ask too many questions." "Red flag," Stefan said immediately. "Oh, massive red flag," I agreed. But also I was intrigued. So we start messaging, and she's witty, flirty, and interesting, the whole 9 yards. After a few days, she asks if I want to meet up. I say sure, expecting she'll suggest a bar or coffee or whatever. Instead, she sends me an address and says, "Meet me here at 9 p.m. Wear something you don't mind getting messy." Mary's eyes widened. "No." "Yes," I said. And I'm sitting there looking at this message thinking, this is either going to be amazing or I'm going to end up on a true crime podcast. But I'd been playing it safe for months and getting nowhere, so I thought, fuck it. Let's take a risk. I leaned forward. So I show up at this address, and it's a warehouse. Like, an actual warehouse in an industrial area with barely any streetlights. Very, this is where I get murdered energy. I'm texting my roommate the location like, if I don't check in by midnight, call the police. Jamal was grinning. I love this already. I walk up to the door and there's a small sign that says Studio B. I knock and Sienna opens it. She looks even better in person, paint-splattered overalls, hair tied up, this confident smile. And she goes, "You came? I wasn't sure you would." I smiled at the memory. She leads me inside, and it's this huge open space. Completely empty except for tarps covering the floor, buckets of paint everywhere, canvases propped against the walls. And in the center of the room, there's this massive blank canvas, like probably 10 feet tall. Wait, is this an art thing? Mary asked. It's an art thing, I confirmed. Sienna explains that she's a painter, and she does these experimental sessions where she paints with unconventional methods. And she wanted a partner for this one. I could see them all trying to figure out where this was going. So she hands me a pair of overalls and says, "Put these on. You're going to want to protect your clothes." And I'm like, okay, this is already weird, but I'm committed. I took a breath. Once we're both suited up, Sienna starts explaining the concept. She's done traditional painting, she's done paint throwing, she's done body painting. But tonight, she wants to try something she calls kinetic intimacy painting. What does that even mean? Stefan asked. Basically, I said, we cover ourselves in paint and then we create art with our bodies on the canvas. Together, rolling, pressing, moving against each other. The painting is created through physical connection. There was a beat of silence. That's actually kind of beautiful, Mary said. It was, I admitted, but also extremely sensual in a way I wasn't prepared for. Like, Sienna's explaining all this very matter-of-factly, very chill. But I'm standing there realizing I'm about to be covered in paint, pressed against this gorgeous woman I just met, creating art through physical contact. I felt my face heat up. So we start, I continued. She picks the first color, this deep blue, and just pours it directly on herself. On her arms, her chest, her legs. Then she looks at me and says, "Your turn." I picked red. She helped me pour it, her hands guiding the bucket over my shoulders, down my back. And the paint was cold at first, but then it warmed up against my skin. It felt intense, intimate, even though we hadn't really touched yet. Jamal was completely still listening. Sienna took my hand and led me to the canvas. We stood there for a second, just looking at each other, covered in paint. And then she said, "There's no wrong way to do this. Just feel it." I let out a breath. So we started moving. At first it was tentative, just pressing our palms against the canvas, leaving handprints. Blue and red mixing into purple. But then Sienna pressed her whole body against it, and I followed. We were side by side, arms spread, making these sweeping arcs with our movements. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, which made me a little self-conscious, and my voice got quieter. And then it got closer, I said. She turned to face me, and we pressed against each other with the canvas behind us, her blue paint mixing with my red on our skin. Our faces were inches apart, breathing heavy from the movement and the adrenaline and the tension. I ran my fingers along the edge of my glass. We started moving together slow at first, then faster, spinning, rolling across the canvas. At one point, she was on top of me, her hands on either side of my head, paint dripping from her hair onto my face. We were both laughing, breathless, completely lost in it. Mary was absolutely transfixed. The paint was everywhere, I continued. In our hair, on our faces, covering every inch of our body. I paused, remembering the feeling. Sienna kissed me. It was messy and chaotic and tasted like acrylic, but it was also one of the hottest moments of my life. We didn't stop moving and kept creating the painting even while we were kissing, our bodies leaving these wild, passionate marks on the canvas. I took a shaky breath. At some point, we ended up on the floor in front of the canvas, still covered in paint, still touching. The overalls had come partially off, pushed down to our waists because they were restricting our movement. Her hands were on my skin, leaving blue streaks. My hands were in her hair, getting it even messier than it already was. Lina's voice dropped lower. We stayed there for hours, painting, kissing, exploring, creating art and creating these intense moments of connection. By the end, the canvas was this chaotic explosion of blue and red and purple, all these layered impressions of our bodies. And we were exhausted, covered head to toe in dried paint, lying on the tarp just staring at what we'd made. I smiled. Sienna looked at me and said, "I think that's the best piece I've ever created." And I wasn't sure if she meant the painting or the experience, but honestly, I hope she meant both. I looked around the table. We saw each other a few more times after that. Did another painting session, went on some actual dates. But she ended up taking a residency in Berlin about 3 weeks ago, so it didn't turn into anything serious. But I still have photos of that first painting. She let me take some before she sold it. She sold it? Jamal asked. For $3,000, I said. To some gallery owner who apparently could feel the passion in the brushstrokes. I made air quotes. If only he knew. Mary was shaking her head, smiling. That's incredible. It was, I said. Definitely the biggest risk I've taken since moving here. Could have been a disaster. Instead, it was kind of perfect. I set my drink down. So yeah, that's my story. Jamal slow clapped. Okay, I'm officially impressed. Right? Stefan said. How am I supposed to follow all of this? You're the last one, I said, gesturing to the deck. No pressure, but you've got a lot to live up to. Stefan reached for a card, shaking his head. This is going to be a disaster. And just like that, the night kept going.
Chapter 4. Stefan. I looked at the three of them staring at me expectantly and sighed. I just want to say, for the record, that my life is extremely boring compared to all of this, I said, reaching for the deck. I've been with my boyfriend for 6 years. We have a meal prep schedule. We go to bed at 10. That's why you're going last, Jamal said, grinning. We save the best for last. Or the most disappointing, I muttered, pulling a card. Tell us about your wildest night out. I stared at it for a second, and something must have shown on my face because Mary leaned forward. Oh, you have a story, she said. I might have a story, I admitted. I set the card down and took a sip of my beer, buying time. Okay, so, context. I'm gay, I've been with my boyfriend Derek for 6 years, and we're very domestic. We host game nights. We have a standing brunch reservation. Our idea of excitement is trying viral TikTok recipes. Lina smiled. Sounds nice, actually. It is nice, I said. But it also means that when people ask me about wild nights out, I usually have nothing. My wildest story is typically about the time we accidentally went to a straight bar and had to sit through a bachelorette party. But not this time, Jamal said. Not this time, I confirmed. I took a breath. So this happened about a year ago. Derek has this friend from college, Marcus, who was visiting the city for a weekend. They hadn't seen each other in years, and Marcus really wanted to reconnect, so he invited both of us out for drinks. Now, I should mention that I'd never met Marcus before. Derek had told me stories. Apparently they were pretty close back in college, did a semester abroad together, stayed in touch online. But this was my first time actually meeting him. Was he cute? Jamal asked. He was... I trailed off, searching for the correct word. Intimidating, in a hot way. He was tall, very bulky built, and confident. Not Derek's usual type at all, which should have been my first clue that their friendship was interesting. So we meet up at this cocktail bar in the city, I continued. Nice place, dim lighting, craft drinks. Marcus is already there when we arrive, and he greets Derek with this huge hug, like lifts him off the ground. Very affectionate. Then he turns to me, shakes my hand, and goes, So, you're the one who finally tied him down? Ominous, Lina said jokingly. Right, I said. But we sit down, order drinks, and start catching up. And honestly, it was pretty normal and boring at first. They're reminiscing about college, telling embarrassing stories, the usual. I'm mostly just listening, laughing along. I shifted in my seat. But then Marcus orders a second round, then a third. And the stories start getting more and more personal and intimate. And I'm starting to realize that Derek and Marcus's friendship might have been a little more complicated than I'd understood. Jamal's eyes lit up. Oh? Yeah, I said. So finally, after like the fourth round, I just ask, Hey, were you two ever, you know? And they both look at each other and start laughing. And Marcus says, Oh, he didn't tell you? I looked at their faces. Turns out Derek and Marcus hooked up multiple times throughout college. They were never officially together, but they had this whole friends with benefits situation that lasted like 2 years. And he never mentioned this? Mary asked. Never mentioned it, I confirmed. I'm sitting there trying to process this information while Marcus is casually explaining how they explored a lot together, and Derek is turning bright red. I couldn't help but smile at the memory. So I'm like, okay, this is weird, but fine. It was years ago, people have pasts, whatever. But then Marcus leans in and says, You know, we should talk about the real reason I wanted to meet up. During a truly dreadful pregnant pause, my thoughts were spiraling. I'm thinking, oh God, what now? Is he still in love with Derek? Is this going to be awkward? But instead, Marcus looks at both of us and says, I'm in an open relationship now, and my partner and I have been looking for a couple to explore with. Lina's mouth fell open. Jamal made a strangled noise. He just put it out there, I said. Very direct. Said he and his partner, who was apparently waiting back at their hotel, had seen photos of us on Derek's social media and thought we'd be a good match. Asked if we'd ever considered opening up our relationship or trying anything with other people. What did you say? Common. Don't leave us hanging, Mary asked. I said no, I replied. Immediately, very firmly. I was like, thanks, but we're monogamous. Very happily monogamous. And then Derek said, Actually, can we talk about it? No, Lina said. Yes, I said. My boyfriend of 6 years looks at me and says, I mean, we've never really discussed it. Maybe we should just consider it? I shook my head. I felt completely blindsided. We end up leaving the bar and walking around the block to have this intense conversation about boundaries and trust and whether Derek has been secretly wanting this the whole time. Back at the bar, he swore that he hasn't and that he's just curious. But I'm already on edge with the whole thing. We walk back to the bar, where I'm planning to politely decline and go home. But Marcus is very persuasive. He's explaining how it would work, how communication is key, how his partner is lovely and respectful. And Derek is looking at me with these puppy dog eyes. You didn't, Jamal said. We went back to their hotel, I said flatly. All three of them made various noises of shock. I don't even fully know how it happened, I continued. 1 minute I'm saying absolutely not. The next minute we're in an Uber heading to the Ritz-Carlton. I think I was in shock. Or maybe I was curious too and didn't want to admit it. We get to their room, and Marcus's partner Julian is there. And he's gorgeous, like model-level attractive. Very soft-spoken, very gentle. Completely different energy from Marcus. He shakes our hands and offers us wine. This is insane, Mary said. Oh, wait for it, I said. So we all sit down and have this very adult conversation about what everyone's comfortable with. Julian brings out this actual checklist printed out, laminated. It has different activities, and you check yes, no, or maybe for each one. Lina covered her face. Oh my God. I'm sitting there with my boyfriend and two strangers, filling out a sexual activity checklist like it's a consent form at the dentist, I said. It was the most surreal moment of my life. I smiled despite myself. But here's the thing, it actually helped. It made everything feel less scary, more controlled. By the time we finished going through it, I felt like I actually knew what I was signing up for. I looked around the table. So things started slow. Just the four of us on the couch talking, drinking wine. Then Marcus suggests we move to the bed just to be more comfortable, and gradually, naturally, things started to shift. It started with Julian. He was the least intimidating, and he seemed to sense I was nervous. He asked if he could kiss me, and I said yes. And it was nice, soft. Derek was right there next to me, holding my hand, which somehow wasn't awkward. Then Marcus and Derek started kissing, and I'm watching my boyfriend kiss someone else for the first time in 6 years, and it's strange but also kind of hot. And then the four of us are all close, all touching, and it stops feeling weird and starts feeling natural. Jamal was completely silent, eyes wide. The boundaries we'd set kept everything feeling safe, I continued. Every time someone wanted to try something new, they asked. Every time someone checked in. It was the most communicative sexual experience I've ever had, which is wild considering it involved 4 people. At one point I was with Julian while Derek was with Marcus, and we were just next to each other. I could hear Derek, could reach over and touch him if I wanted. It was intimate in this unexpected way. How long did this go on? Mary asked quietly. Hours, I said. We'd take breaks, drink water, talk. Then someone would initiate again and we'd continue. It was like, I don't know how to describe it. It felt like this suspended reality where normal rules didn't apply. I smiled slightly. At some point, maybe 3 in the morning, the 4 of us tangled up in this massive hotel bed, barely able to move. And Julian orders room service. So we're lying there, naked and wrecked, eating French fries and laughing about how insane the whole night was. Did you stay the whole night? Stefan asked. We did, I said. Fell asleep altogether, woke up around noon. Had breakfast with them, exchanged numbers. It was weirdly wholesome. Like, we'd just had this wild sexual experience, but we also genuinely liked them as people. Derek and I took a very long walk afterwards. Processed everything. Talked about whether it changed anything between us. And honestly, it didn't. If anything, it made us stronger. We'd done something scary together and come out the other side still solid. Do you still talk to them? Lina asked. We do. We've met up a few more times when they're in town. Sometimes it's just dinner. Sometimes it's more, I said, smiling sheepishly. I looked around the table. So yeah, that's my wildest night out. The time my boring domestic relationship got a lot less boring for about 12 hours. There was complete silence. Then Jamal said, I'm sorry. You're telling me that you meal prep, 10 p.m. bedtime, you are in a casual open situation with a hot couple from out of town? Not open, I corrected. We're still monogamous in our daily life. But when Marcus and Julian visit, we make an exception. That's the most unexpected thing I've heard all night, Mary said. And I just heard about Jamal's threesome with a professional dom. Right? Lina said. You completely blindsided us. I shrugged. I told you my life was boring. I just didn't mention the occasional exciting parts. Jamal shook his head slowly. You win. Hands down, you absolutely win. I wasn't aware we were competing, I said with a small smile. We definitely were, he said. And you destroyed us. The four of us sat there for a moment, the weight of all our stories hanging in the air. Then Mary started laughing hysterically. What? I asked. We just told four complete strangers the wildest stories of our lives, she said. On a random Tuesday night because some meetup host handed us a deck of cards. Lina started laughing too. Oh my God, you're right. This is insane, Jamal said, but he was grinning. This is absolutely insane, and I love it. I looked at the three of them, these people I'd met 2 hours ago who now knew more about my sex life than most of my actual friends. Same time next week? I said. They all looked at me. I'm serious, I said. This was, I don't know, fun? Terrifying? Both? Both, Mary agreed. Definitely both. I'm in, Jamal said immediately. Lina nodded. Yeah, okay, I'm in too. Mary smiled. All right, same time next week. We exchanged numbers, made plans, promised not to ghost each other. And somehow, impossibly, we all actually showed up the next week, and the week after that, and the week after that.
Quote of the week. Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Oscar Wilde. Thank you for listening to The Confession Game, a collection of unhinged queer short stories. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you'd love more stories or have a request. New videos uploaded every Friday.